Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano, and today we face a hard truth. This is certainly a hard episode to do, and I've been trying to find the right approach. It's not easy. You know, Charlie Kirk is gone, assassinated. He was shot and killed at the Utah Valley University on stage at a Turning Point USA event, and he died in a public forum in front of students, faculty, so many Americans who came out to hear the public debates, the challenging of ideas. He was killed while exercising the very freedom that defines America, using his right to free speech to engage those who disagreed and persuade them on the issues. And this strikes at the heart of our nation. Now, usually when I get an idea for an episode, it's easy. I mean, I've been in the classroom for nearly 20 years. I know the topics and I could run with it. But trying to find the right approach today, it's definitely proved a little bit challenging. And it's going to be challenging because, like many of you out there, I am sad. I'm sad for Charlie and his family, those two gorgeous little kids who lost their father, 31 years old. I'm sad for his supporters. I'm sad for our nation. But I'm also angry. I'm angry at the left. I'm angry at the media. I'm angry at all those celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. I'm angry at Democrats for dehumanizing anyone who disagrees with them. So the question is, what do we do? What do we do? How do we put those emotions aside and not let them get the better of us? How do we harness those emotions in a way that allows us to speak with clarity and purpose rather than just rage? And it's not easy, I'll tell you that. Especially when you see the vileness out there, the narcissistic culture on the left that believes it could do whatever the hell it wants because they see themselves as more moral and virtuous than everyone else. It's a culture that's driven by raw emotion, not reason or logic. Most of them don't know their ass from their elbow. And the same people who cheered the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO are the same ones now celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. And I will not say the names of the killers because they don't deserve to get that notoriety. What I'm saying is disgusting because it doesn't stop there. Some even say, well, it's fitting that Charlie was killed with a gun because he supported the Second Amendment. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? By that twisted logic, is it fitting for someone who supports open borders to lose a loved one to an illegal immigrant? I mean, come on now. This is the stupidity that we have to deal with right now? And to everyone who finds satisfaction in Charlie's death, to everyone who thinks a difference of opinion warrants a bullet, to everyone that's going to the Charlie Kirk vigils and trying to mock and troll and destroy flowers and kick over candles, take a hard look in the mirror. What is the emptiness that drives you to such hate and bitterness? What kind of loser do you have to be? You've reduced yourselves to the mindless echo chambers. You parrot slogans. You never even listen to Charlie Kirk. Instead, you listen to what morons are saying about a 30-second clip soundbite that's stripped out of context. And what we're witnessing is this cultural rot I've been talking about for years on this podcast. And I want everyone to look at the contrast. You know, I have obviously a lot of Republicans and conservatives in the audience. I have Democrats and independents that listen to this. And hopefully maybe there's some people that aren't really into politics, but they're now following what's going on because they're concerned. I want everyone to look at the contrast. Charlie Kirk is assassinated. No riots, no fiery but peaceful protests, no looting, no smashed storefronts. What do you see? You see quiet gatherings. You see people praying, remembering Charlie's life, the principles that he defended. And that is the difference between those who want a freedom and those who want to destroy it. Charlie was someone who elevated conservative ideas, but his platform gave voice to Democrats. It gave voice to progressives who were willing to debate on the issues something that is the whole point of the United States. It's the whole point of a free society. We get to engage in robust debate, promote our points of view, try and persuade other people. And no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, you should not lose your life for it. And Charlie was someone who's unafraid. He was someone willing to debate anyone. He understood that free speech isn't a courtesy. It's not a favor granted by government. It's a God-given right. It's the foundation of our society. And the whole point of speech and debate is to challenge ideas and our differences without resorting to force or violence. Charlie understood this better than most. It's why he went to college campuses, because he knew when people stop talking, when people start suppressing their ideas, their beliefs, when speech goes silent, violence is going to erupt. And the shot that ended his life, it wasn't just an attack on Charlie Kirk. It was an attack on every single American. It was an attack on America itself. In America, we argue, we vote, we persuade, we challenge each other, we write letters to our politicians, we post online comments, we call into radio programs, we could protest, and we could speak our minds. That is how the American system works. It's messy. It can be ugly at times. It can be crude. It can be loud and uncomfortable. Free speech is not meant to be easy. It's easy when it's speech you agree with, but the whole point of free speech and debate is to hear points of view you disagree with, points of view that may even offend you. And if you're offended, well, too bad for you. You either refute it with your arguments backed up by evidence and facts, or that's it, just go home. No one has the right to take it away from you. No one. Disagreement is the American way. It's part of American life, and it's part of learning. It's how we grow wiser, and sometimes it even humbles us as we learn new things. Now, I may not agree with someone's lifestyle. I may not share someone's political beliefs, but that does not mean I hate them or want to see them dead, and that's the difference. If you celebrate the death of someone simply because they disagreed with you, you are the problem. I don't care what your political beliefs are. I disagree with people on policy, but I will still treat every single person with dignity and respect as an individual. I don't care what their political beliefs. I don't care what their lifestyle choices are. You'll still be treated with dignity and respect. But we're living through a period of time where the left, the Democrats, much of the media, they've succeeded. They've succeeded at defining political opponents as extremists. The labels come fast. The accusations come easy to them. It's an effort to make their supporters see people they disagree with as subhuman, unworthy of life, unworthy of the right to speak freely. No one should be killed. No one. No one should feel threatened for expressing an opinion. You know, facts and evidence, they strengthen our arguments, but no one has a monopoly on right or wrong opinions. Opinions are opinions. Only totalitarians will tell you you're not allowed to think for yourself. So for this episode, I'm going to do what Charlie would have done. I'm going to exercise my God-given right to speak freely. I'm going to defend the ideas that gave his life so much meaning. And this episode isn't only about grief and anger. It's about the meaning of free speech in America, why it's sacred. See, free speech is not just one right among many. It is the right that safeguards every other freedom. It's the mechanism by which we settle our political disputes without bloodshed. Our founders understood that without the ability to argue, without the ability to persuade other people and debate openly, the republic itself would never survive. It would ultimately collapse. Charlie understood that too. He stood on the stage because he believed that ideas should rise or fall on their own merit. He didn't hide from tough questions. He didn't hide from opposing viewpoints. In fact, he encouraged it. He welcomed it. That's the American way. And in modern times, it seems like we speak to our echo chambers. We speak in our silos. And I really hope that Democrats and people who have disengaged from politics hear this episode, because we have to explore how we've gotten to this point and what it's going to take to pull us back from the abyss. Charlie's murder, it should serve as a wake-up call to all of you out there. Every single one of you. For too long, people have been too timid to provide their own thoughts, their own beliefs, their own ideas, their own opinions. That's been going on for way too long. It's time to wake up. And that's why I'm going to spend the rest of this episode confronting the deeper forces that brought us here. I'm going to talk about the cultural rot, the reckless language that tells people their opponents are Nazis and fascists that must be stopped by any means necessary. Any means necessary. What did all those politicians think that actually meant? And I'll explain that when we get back from a quick break, so everyone hang tight. We'll be right back. It's no secret that as we age, our bodies begin to break down. Now, if you want to move with ease and keep your skin glowing and youthful, you got to try Native Path Collagen. It's made with only type 1 and 3 collagen. These are the two most important types that make up 90% of your body's collagen, and they're found in your skin, bones, joints, and gut. They deliver powerful benefits without any fillers or additives. I have it every morning with my coffee, and it's a single ingredient, flavorless powder that mixes easily into the coffee. But you could also put it in smoothies, oatmeal. It's third-party tested for purity, and it absorbs fast thanks to its peptide form. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, and 8,000 5-star reviews, Native Path is a brand you could trust, backed by a 365-day no-risk guarantee, live phone support where you talk to a real person. They make it easy to get started. So check out the bundle deals and join their private Facebook group for recipes and support. Visit getnativepath.com/PAS. That's getnativepath.com/PAS. Welcome back to the P.A.S. Report podcast. So I want to start off this segment by tackling the notion that this is a both sides issue. I keep on hearing that from many within the media, many within Democratic circles, the whataboutism. And I know you've seen this all over social media and in the press. It's the standard playbook. I mean, I want to be very clear. Violence is wrong no matter who commits it. And I've spoken about these topics, whether it's the attempted assassination of Republican members of Congress in 2017. You had Congressman Steve Scalise nearly lose his life. And if he wasn't there, it would have been far worse because he had the security detail. You had the 2 separate assassination attempts on former President Trump, the brutal murder of Minnesota State Legislator Melissa Hortman, the attempt to burn down Pennsylvania Governor Josh Spear's home with his family inside simply because he was Jewish and a pro-Hamas zealot. Didn't like that. He wanted to send a message. Yeah, all these things should be denounced. They should be repudiated without hesitation. It's really not that hard. But let's not pretend that this is a both sides issue. If your first instinct is to deflect with, well, what about? Ask yourself, why do you refuse to face the reality in front of us? Why? Why is that your knee-jerk reaction? It's because you have nothing else. For years, Democrat leaders have used the most vicious rhetoric to define their political opponents as existential threats. I played the clips over and over again on this program, from calling them Nazis, fascists, racist, enemies of democracy, domestic enemies, language that paints fellow Americans as something less than human. You had the former president give an entire speech with a blood-red lights behind him with 2 Marines flanked over them about how anyone who supports Trump is the biggest threat to the republic that we've ever faced. And they routinely tell their supporters that their political opposition must be stopped by any means necessary. They frame ordinary policy disagreements as a life-or-death struggle. Now, what exactly do they think by any means necessary actually means? When you have people like Senator Chris Murphy telling supporters, we are in a war to save democracy, do they not realize how by any means necessary primes unstable people out there to believe violence is not just acceptable, but it's also virtuous? I mean, if you truly believe that the political opposition is Nazis, that Trump is Hitler reincarnate, don't you have a duty or an obligation to prevent Nazism from spreading? And I will say, I want to say this right off the bat, many Democrats, they came out, they issued statements condemning Charlie Kirk's assassination, but let's be honest here, most of these statements were milquetoast statements at best. I mean, the only 2 prominent Democrats that I saw forcefully come out after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, Senator Bernie Sanders put out like an 8-minute video, and John Fetterman. Now, I'm sure there are a few more. However, most of the statements I hear come from the Democrats will say, yeah, we condemn violence, but. And I think it's important. I think it's important to refer to the episode I did last week on oikophobia, the contempt we're witnessing for our own country by many on the left of the political spectrum. It's not a conservative or Republican problem. It's not even a centrist Democrat problem. This is a progressive problem, that they actively despise this country. And that mindset is at the heart of Charlie Kirk's assassination. When you teach generations to despise America, to believe that its history is nothing but oppression and evil, that the political opposition is evil, it becomes easier to see each other not as neighbors, not as citizens that have to make this work because what comes next will be far worse. It makes it easier to just look at someone else as an enemy. And that's when you see the contempt mix with reckless language and behaviors. The results are a powder keg, and that powder keg has now exploded. Political rhetoric can get heated on both sides of the aisle. I understand that. But let's be honest. Over the last several years, it has been leading Democrats, not just regular people on social media putting out some post and they're morons and rejects. I'm talking about Democratic leaders, major media figures who repeatedly throw out words like Hitler, Nazi, fascist, racist, by any means necessary. They warn of the death of democracy. We're in a war. Those are not neutral descriptions. Those are fighting words. Words have meaning. They don't just float in the air. They shape how people think, how they act. And if you convince people that their political opponents are modern-day Nazis bent on destroying democracy, what do you think is going to happen? It's only a small step for someone to believe they are morally obligated to stop those opponents by any means necessary. And I want you to hear it for yourself. Listen to how leading Democrats and media figures have framed their political opponents in their own words, not Professor Giordano's words.
Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
This is what kicking the out of fascism looks like.
Try to prevent the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos that's been unleashed against us.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racist nationalism.
We are now living in a fascist dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
We are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. We're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
Not only to roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator.
When fascism isn't just coming, it's already here.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, "No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core."
We have to start calling his supporters racist as well. That MAGA symbol has come to represent something. It is the new Nazi symbol. It is the new hood.
Because they're not a party, right? They're Sinn Féin to the IRA. They're the PLO to Hamas. They're a dime store front for a terrorist movement.
The Republican Party is basically a domestic terrorist cell at this point, and they should be treated as such.
There are elements of the GOP that are starting to look like the jihadists.
Not a political party. They're a white nationalist movement. They're a fascist threat to our nation. That's not hyperbolic. That's academic.
Would have once seemed hyperbolic, but it increasingly does feel like the Republican Party has become a death cult, and it's all about Donald Trump.
There is no alternative right now because the Republican Party project today is a fascist authoritarian project.
Fact is, Republicans in Congress are still in the grip of the ultra-MAGA agenda.
It has become an authoritarian embracing cult. It is fascist.
We take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue with their allies in the Congress of the United States.
Now, I literally could have wasted my time and pulled hours and hours and hours of those same sentiments being labeled over and over and over again. That is not debate. That's not arguing the merits of policy positions. That's not an attempt to persuade people and win them over in the public square. That is the dehumanization of political opposition. It's coordinated, it's organized, and it carries consequences because if you listen to what those people said, if you listen to their words, doesn't it sound like a call to action to you? Doesn't it sound like they want their supporters to stand up and do something? And just look at what they have done in regard to every political issue that exists. They attach labels. You're racist. You're a bigot. You're a misogynist. You're Islamophobic, transphobic. You hate gay people. You hate brown people. You're a Nazi. You're a threat to democracy. They never stop shouting about fascism, Yet a man murdered Charlie Kirk precisely because he hated Charlie's ideas. He hated the idea that Charlie gets to express his viewpoints publicly and gets to engage in debate and try and persuade other people. Now, if assassinating someone like that isn't the very definition of fascism, silencing speech with violence, I don't know what is. Because that itself is what fascism looks like. But let's look at how the Democrats and the media try and frame Republicans and conservatives when it comes to the actual issues. So if we're discussing the issues, and you believe in borders and the enforcement of immigration law, if you believe in the right of a sovereign nation to decide who enters, you're accused of being xenophobic and hating brown people. If you talk about black-on-black crime because you care about victims, you want safer neighborhoods, if you talk about the breakdown of the family unit, well, then you're a racist. If you criticize DEI policies because you think that it turns us into a tribal society, that it threatens our national security, that it threatens the stability and undermines the idea of America, it undermines merit, and it's all designed to divide people by identity, well, then you're a white supremacist. If you believe that a baby is a human being from the moment of conception, and that baby is a life, well, then you're a misogynist and you hate women. You want to take away women's rights. You want to go back to the Handmaid's Tale. If you believe God only created two genders, and this is also grounded in biology, if you don't believe that boys and men should compete in women's sports, well, you're transphobic. If you call it Islamic extremism as a violent ideology, they say you hate Muslims, when in reality, you just oppose the extremism of Islamists. If you support the Second Amendment because you value the right to self-defense, you don't want to live in abusive and tyrannical government, they accuse you of being complicit in wanting to see kids die. On every one of these issues, they don't attack the merits of your argument. Not a single Democrat that I can recall has come out and said, hey, I don't agree with them, but they have their opinions and they have the opportunity to make their case. Instead, too many Democrats and the media as well, they frame us as evil, as subhuman, as a domestic violent extremist that must be stamped out of society. And the kicker is that many of the opinions that are now deemed radical were once mainstream in the Democratic Party just a decade or two ago. Borders mattered, crime mattered, merit mattered, debate itself mattered. Not anymore. When did these ideas become so radical? I'd like to know. And I know I'm going to get pushback. I know that's coming. I know that there's going to be leftists and Democrats, but you call us communists. You call us communists. And isn't that denigrating us? Well, here's a newsflash. Calling someone a communist is not the same as calling them a Nazi or a fascist. Communism is a political and economic system, and it's actually debated in academia. Many Democrats openly push ideas that are directly in line with communism. Massive government control, redistribution of wealth, censorship of speech, central planning. Some Democrats proudly proclaim and admit that they embrace socialism, they embrace communism, or at least its principles. That's not a slur. That's actually an actual debate that we could have. That's an accurate description of the policies and philosophies that they themselves promote. That's debating the issues. They have every right to believe in these policies. And I have every right to debate and push back against them. But when you call someone a Nazi or a fascist, you're not debating ideas or policies at all. You're declaring them inherently evil and illegitimate. And we have to reject the left's attempt to dehumanize everyone that disagrees with them. You have to stop being cowards. That's why I admire people like Charlie Kirk. He built a national platform, and he encouraged students, young people who have been ignored by both political parties, the Democrats and Republicans. He encouraged them to get involved, to enter the marketplace of ideas, and it didn't matter what their political ideology was. He spoke to those who he agreed with and those he didn't. He took questions from critics. He didn't shy away from them. He didn't try and silence them. He didn't want to talk to an echo chamber. It's not like the left. Then you got a conservative speaker on campus and the left tries to shout them down, force them to run, and cancel their speech. Think about it. And you know what really bothers me? Think about what Charlie Kirk did. Sure, he was promoting his ideas, his beliefs, his opinions in the public square. But didn't he elevate those that disagreed with him by giving them a platform? They should be thanking him, not killing him. We can disagree passionately, but no American should have their humanity stripped from them simply because they have a different political opinion. And if Democrats are truly interested in lowering the temperature, because you're going to hear, yes, we'd like to lower the temperature, but there's always going to be a but to it. But if they're truly interested in lowering the temperature, they would take accountability for their statements, their words. They need to start by ending the rhetoric that paints political opponents as enemies that need to be crushed. They need to say clearly and without any qualification that disagreement should not be a death sentence. Every American has a right to speak freely and live in peace. And I do want to say again, Bernie Sanders did release a video stating that, John Fetterman did, and other Democrats have said that, but not enough of them and not loudly enough. So this is going to be the real test. I'll explain what Democrats can do and how we faced moments like this before and emerged stronger. So hang tight. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the P.A.S. Report podcast. And as I said at the start, this is going to be a hard episode. It's not easy to do. After watching that video, which is horrific, I don't encourage anyone to watch it. This is part of the problem with social media. I encourage you to send this episode to your Democratic friends. Send it to people who don't really engage in politics, who kind of bury their heads in the sand, because we need to get beyond this. We have to figure this out as a nation. Understand that there's talk on both sides about a civil war and a national divorce. I hate to break it to everyone, but if this doesn't work, if the American experiment fails and this nation collapses, what comes next is not going to be any better. It's going to be far worse. It's going to be a very difficult and challenging period. And all the luxuries that you enjoy today will be gone tomorrow. So if Democratic leaders are serious about lowering the temperature, they have to publicly and unequivocally call on their party, the members, the supporters, to end all the Hitler, the Nazi, fascist, death to democracy, extremist, racist labels that they hurl at their political opponents for simply having policy disagreements, for using those words as a weapon to bludgeon and silence their political opponents. And not only do they need to repudiate using these types of words, there has to be real consequences that if a member violates and starts using any of these words, well, then they lose their committee assignments. They get cut off from the party fundraising apparatus. And if they continue to do it, they face expulsion from the political party. That's the way Democrats would be serious. Again, if you're using a Hitler or Nazi reference, it tells me you know absolutely nothing about World War II. You know absolutely nothing about what Hitler did. No American politician, Democrat or Republican, is remotely in the same line as Hitler. And if the Democrats refuse, then their statements that they made, their generic white milquetoast statements that they put online were hollow. And they're given their silent approval, which is going to amount to complicit support. But also President Trump needs to get involved. President needs to lead. And as president, he should use the power of the bully pulpit. He should immediately call on Democrats and Republicans to attend a roundtable at the White House. And it should be televised live to the public. And when I say Democrats, I am talking not just Democrat leadership. I am talking about inviting members of the squad, inviting Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, inviting Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. Invite them all, because let the country see for themselves. President Trump is usually good at things, and I think that if you did this roundtable summit, it puts pressure on both parties to knock it off. A nationally televised roundtable would send a powerful message that words actually matter, that political violence is never justified, and that we have to settle our political disputes through debate, not intimidation. It would force every participant to look the American people in the eye and commit to that principle. And it would force Democrats to go on record as to whether they want to stop with all the Nazi talk or admit that this is what the party has become. And think about a public commitment like that would make it harder for anyone to hide behind excuses or play the whataboutism game. And there's another pledge every participant should take at this open roundtable. Stop bashing America itself. We can and should talk honestly about our past, including our sins, whether it's slavery, segregation, discrimination. But the constant denigration of America's founding, of our history, it has to come to an end. If you have such contempt for this nation, the nation that you serve as a member of Congress, it's time for you to go, because you can't defend our country if you actively despise it. I talked about that on last week's episode. We need leaders that affirm Our nation may not be perfect, but its principles are worth defending. And if Democrats walk away or refuse to show up, then they reveal that all their talk of unity, it's just a BS talking point that they're just throwing out there because the pressure's on them, because they know they effed up royally. And if they come, then the responsibility shifts to every leader, every member of Congress at that table, Democrat, Republican alike. We speak plainly, denounce political violence, reject the stupid labels that they attach, hold people accountable. This is how you lower the temperature. This is how you reaffirm the ideals that Charlie Kirk fought for, that bind us together, free speech, free debate, discourse, disagreement. This is how we start rebuilding trust in a country that is desperately devoid of it. At the same time, we got to be honest with ourselves. Political violence is not new in America. We've seen it before. And sometimes in moments darker and more divided than the one we're witnessing today. I mean, think back, earliest days of the Republic. Some wanted to fight the revolution, others did not. As the ink was drying on the Constitution, you had bitter disputes between Federalists and Anti-Federalists, political arguments that would get violent sometimes. You had Vice President Aaron Burr kill Alexander Hamilton in a duel. President Abraham Lincoln assassinated just days after the Civil War ended. At the turn of the 20th century, we saw William McKinley murdered by an anarchist. Fast forward, 1960s, very tumultuous period. President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, all gunned down. We saw the Vietnam protests and the race riots of the 1970s. Each of these tragedies was a shock to the nation, and each time everyone probably wondered, would the American experiment continue? Is it about to collapse? Is it falling apart? But all those periods, it did hold up. And we came out stronger as a nation. Now, as of right now, I can't tell you what's going to happen. I can't tell whether Charlie's death is going to serve as a catalyst for real change, for the idea of mutual respect. Is this the beginning of the end of the dehumanization of political opponents? Or is this the start of something that's far more dangerous to come? I can't answer that. And that's why this moment is much more than just a headline. This is a moment that I believe has profoundly changed us and changed America. And the reaction, I'm not talking about the haters now, I'm talking about the good people of the United States, the reaction by so many people who probably had no idea who Charlie Kirk was, people who didn't know what his politics were, who never really paid attention to him, people that are looking at it and they understand that a 31-year-old guy should not die just because he's expressing his political beliefs and encouraging those that disagree with him to debate him. Our founders warned how fragile freedom can be. John Adams, he cautioned us, liberty once lost is lost forever. Benjamin Franklin, when asked, what form of government have you given us? A republic, if you could keep it. Their words speak to us today, and Charlie understood that. It's what he was fighting for, and we honor him by doing exactly what he did. Show up, state a case, take questions, defend ideas, refuse to hate, refuse to threaten, refuse to be quiet when it matters most. Don't be silenced or censored. Let Charlie's courage be our charge. Let's keep speaking out, keep debating, keep America free, because the alternative is far worse. I want to thank you for joining me today, and I'll be back on Wednesday with another great episode of the P.A.S. Report podcast.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at PASreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.